There is a peculiar, almost haunting quality to the way secrets eventually breathe their way into the light, rising like silt disturbed at the bottom of an ancient, silent lake. For decades, within the sterile and shadowed corridors of intelligence agencies, there existed a collection of observations that transcended the mere logistics of statecraft or the cold mathematics of espionage. These documents, once bound by the iron seals of classification, do not speak of munitions or borders, but of the very fabric of reality itself. They whisper of a discovery that bridges the chasm between the rigorous observations of quantum physics and the luminous revelations of ancient mysticism. At the heart of this intersection lies a profound inquiry into the nature of collective manifestation and the singular, echoing truth known as the Law of One. To encounter these ideas is to stand at the edge of a precipice, looking out over an ocean where the individual drop of water realizes, with a startle of cosmic recognition, that it has always been the entire sea. This introduction serves as our threshold, a moment to steady the breath before we peel back the layers of a reality that is far more plastic, more responsive, and more unified than the mechanical world we were taught to inhabit. Imagine for a moment that the universe is not a collection of separate objects rattling around in an empty void, but rather a singular, living tapestry of vibrating energy, where every thread is inextricably looped into every other. In the eyes of the clandestine researchers who once pored over these concepts, the human mind was not a locked room, but a focal point within a vast holographic field. The practical significance of such a realization is staggering, for it suggests that our thoughts and intentions are not private whispers lost in the wind, but are instead directional signals that ripple through the collective substrate of existence. When we speak of a classified document on such matters, we are essentially talking about the mapping of the human soul's influence on the physical world. It is the acknowledgement by the most pragmatic of institutions that there is a hidden architecture to our lives, a set of universal laws that govern how internal belief becomes external form. This is not merely the stuff of dreams. It is the study of the mechanics of miracles, translated into a language of frequency, resonance, and synchronized consciousness. The allure of this specific document and the Law of One philosophy lies in its ability to dissolve the illusion of otherness. We live in a world defined by partitions, nations, languages, ideologies, and the perceived boundaries of our own skin. Yet, the deeper one delves into this cosmic narrative, the more these partitions appear as mere shadows cast upon a wall. The metaphors used by those who studied these phenomena often return to the image of a great sun reflected in a billion different shards of glass. Each shard may believe itself to be a unique source of light, yet they all shine with the same singular fire. The classified nature of this information suggests a recognition of its potency. If a single mind can influence the local field of reality, what might a million minds, synchronized in a singular intent, be capable of achieving? The document hints at a potential for collective manifestation that could restructure the very foundations of our civilization, moving us from a paradigm of competition and scarcity to one of harmony and infinite creation. It is a vision that is both terrifying in its responsibility and breathtaking in its beauty. To understand this introductory landscape, we must also confront the paradox of the observer. We have been conditioned to believe that we are passive witnesses to a world that happens to us, much like a spectator in a darkened theater watching a film play out on an immovable screen. The Law of One, however, suggests that we are both the audience and the projectionist, and the light itself. The cosmic dimension of this truth implies that the universe is a grand mirror, reflecting back to us the sum total of our collective vibrations. When the world feels fractured, it is because we are projecting a sense of fracture. When it feels whole, it is because we have touched the hem of our own unity. The significance of an intelligence agency documenting these truths is perhaps the ultimate irony, that the institutions designed to protect the boundaries of a nation-state found themselves documenting the inevitable dissolution of all boundaries. They were tracking the movement of a spirit that cannot be contained by fences or codes, a spirit that recognizes itself in the eyes of the perceived enemy, and realizes that there was never anyone else in the room. As we stand here at the gateway of this exploration, we must be willing to let go of the rigid certainty that defines our daily lives. The air in this space feels different, thinner perhaps, but also more electric. We are moving into a territory where the metaphor is often the most accurate map, for the truth of the law of one is too vast for the narrow confines of literalism. It is a journey into the heart of the one infinite creator, a term used not to denote a distant deity, but to describe the fundamental intelligence that breathes through every atom, every star, and every heartbeat. This introduction is our invitation to see through the veil of forgetting, to recognize that the documents we discuss are not just relics of a secret history, but are invitations to participate in the active, conscious creation of our future. We are learning to play the instrument of our own consciousness, tuning it to the frequency of a reality where the one is not a number, but a state of being that encompasses all things. This unveiling is not a destination, but a process of remembrance. It is as if we have been wandering through a vast, dark cathedral with only a small candle, and suddenly, the grand chandeliers are being lit one by one. The hidden layers of reality are not being created, they are being revealed. They have always been there, humming beneath the surface of our mundane concerns, waiting for the moment when our collective gaze would be steady enough to behold them. The practical dimension of this is found in our every interaction, our every thought, and our every choice. If we are truly cells in a single cosmic body, then our individual well-being is inseparable from the whole. The introduction to the law of one is, therefore, an introduction to a new kind of responsibility. The responsibility of the co-creator who knows that every brushstroke on the canvas of their own life alters the entire masterpiece. The sense of wonder we feel when contemplating these themes is the soul's reaction to the truth. It is the feeling of a key turning in a long rusted lock. As we prepare to move into the core themes and concepts, we do so with the understanding that we are not merely studying a document, but are engaging with a living philosophy that has the power to transform the very ground we walk upon. We are moving from the shadows of the archive into the brilliance of the sun, prepared to examine the pillars of unity that hold the universe in their silent, loving embrace. The journey ahead is a continuous flow, a narrative that seeks to weave the disparate threads of our understanding into a singular garment of wisdom, reminding us at every turn that in the grand economy of the cosmos, nothing is ever truly lost, and everything is eternally one. To move beyond the threshold of the archive and into the heart of the law of one is to begin a radical deconstruction of the ego's favorite fiction, the concept of the other. The core themes of the CIA's classified explorations into collective manifestation revolve around the staggering proposition that consciousness is not a byproduct of matter, but the primary substance from which matter is precipitated. In this narrative, the universe is viewed as a conscious holographic entity. This implies that the whole is contained within every part, much like a shattered mirror where each tiny fragment still reflects the entire room. This holographic nature is the first pillar of the law of one. It suggests that when the document discusses collective manifestation, it is not describing a group of people shouting into a void to get what they want, but rather a synchronized alignment of internal fragments that, when tuned to the same frequency, can alter the master image of the hologram. It is the realization that the I is a localized aperture through which the all experiences itself, making every act of manifestation an act of self-remembrance by the universe. A second fundamental concept is the vibrational hierarchy of density. The document and the broader philosophical framework suggest that reality is structured in octaves of light and sound, moving from the dense, heavy vibrations of basic matter toward the increasingly refined, luminous frequencies of pure spirit. We currently inhabit what is termed the third density, a realm defined by the crucible of choice and the illusion of separation. Here, the veil of forgetting is at its thickest, intentionally designed to provide a space where souls can experience the intense friction of individuality. This friction is not a mistake. It is the catalyst for growth. The theme of collective manifestation in this context is the process of a civilization learning to raise its collective base frequency. As we move from fear-based, survivalist vibrations toward those of love and understanding, the veil thins, and our ability to consciously shape our reality increases exponentially. The documents suggest that the transition from one density to the next is not a journey through space, but a shift in the quality of our collective resonance. Central to this shift is the theme of polarity, specifically the distinction between service to self and service to other. In the architecture of the Law of One, these are the two primary paths of evolution within the third density. Service to self is the path of contraction, control, and the manipulation of the external world to satisfy the ego's perceived needs. Service to other is the path of expansion, radiance, and the recognition that the well-being of the neighbor is indistinguishable from the well-being of the self. The core concept here is that collective manifestation is significantly more powerful when polarized towards service to other, as it aligns with the fundamental law of love that governs the higher densities. While a group focused on selfish gain can manifest change through raw willpower and psychic coercion, their manifestations are inherently brittle and prone to collapse as they fight against the underlying unity of the cosmos. Conversely, manifestations born of unity and altruism tap into the infinite energy of the source, creating ripples that are harmonious, sustainable, and exponentially more potent. Interwoven with these ideas is the concept of distortions. In the Law of One, there are no sins, only distortions of the original thought of the one infinite creator. The first distortion is free will, the second is love, and the third is light. Everything we perceive as reality, the stars, the trees, the internet, and the human body, is a complex arrangement of light, the material, guided by love, the creative intent, through the exercise of free will, the choice. The classified document's fascination with these concepts stems from the realization that if one understands the physics of distortion, one can begin to reverse engineer the limitations of the physical world. Collective manifestation, then, is the art of consciously utilizing the first three distortions to create a fourth, the distortion of shared reality. We are essentially learning to use our collective free will to command the light of the universe through the medium of love. This is a profound shift from the conqueror mindset of the industrial age to the gardener mindset of the spiritual age, where we realize that we do not force the world to change, we nurture the conditions for its transformation. Another pillar is the intelligence of the heart. The core theme suggests that the human heart is not just a pump, but a sophisticated energetic resonator that connects the individual to the mind/body/spirit complex of the planet, often referred to as the Gaia consciousness or the noosphere. The documents hint at experiments in coherence, where groups of people maintaining a specific heart-centered state could influence the behavior of random number generators or even local weather patterns. This concept bridges the gap between individual psychology and planetary physics. It suggests that our collective emotional state is a weather system in its own right, one that dictates the stability or volatility of our societal structures. When the collective heart is in a state of discord, the external world reflects that chaos. When the collective heart finds a rhythm of coherence, the manifestation field becomes calm and receptive, allowing for the rapid crystallization of new, harmonious systems. Finally, we must address the theme of temporal fluidity. Within the Law of One, time is not a straight line, but a vast, multidimensional landscape of probability/possibility vortices. Collective manifestation is the process of the collective consciousness choosing which vortex to inhabit. The classified files suggest that by focusing our attention and intention on a specific future timeline, we essentially collapse the wave function of all other possibilities, pulling that future into the present. This gives a cosmic weight to our media, our art, and our public discourse, for these are the tools we use to focus the collective gaze. If we constantly look toward dystopia, we manifest it. If we can collectively visualize and feel the reality of a unified, peaceful world, we are not just dreaming, we are performing the highest form of spiritual technology. The pillar of unity reminds us that there is no future waiting for us. There is only the future we are currently collectively, imagining into being. These core themes paint a picture of a universe that is far more intimate and responsive than we ever dared to imagine. We are not tourists in this reality. We are the very atoms of its consciousness, experimenting with the power of our own divinity. As we move from these fundamental pillars into the realm of deeper symbolic narratives, we will see how these abstract laws of frequency and density translate into the living stories that have guided humanity through the long night of separation. We are learning to see the secret geometry behind the world's chaos, recognizing that the One is not just a philosophical goal, but the undeniable, energetic reality of our existence. To truly penetrate the enigmatic heart of the Law of One and its implications for collective manifestation, we must step away from the sterile language of dossiers and frequency charts, entering instead the luminous theater of the soul. The truths contained within the classified archives are often best understood through the medium of allegory, for the human mind is wired to recognize the One through the stories it tells itself about the many. One of the most profound narratives used to illustrate this reality is the parable of the Grand Cathedral of Echoes. Imagine a structure so vast it encompasses the entire horizon, built not of stone and mortar, but of sound and intention. Within this cathedral, billions of individual singers stand in separate, darkened alcoves. Each singer is convinced they are singing a solo, a unique and isolated melody born of their own private joys and sorrows. Because the alcoves are shrouded in a thick mist, the symbolic veil of forgetting, the singers cannot see one another, and the walls seem to absorb their voices, leading them to believe their song is small and inconsequential. However, the Law of One reveals that the cathedral has a secret acoustic architecture. Beneath the floor and behind the mist, every alcove is connected by a series of hidden resonant chambers. When a singer hits a particular note of fear or service to self, the chamber constricts, creating a discordant, jagged vibration that ripples through the foundations, causing the entire structure to tremble with anxiety. But when a singer chooses the frequency of love, the path of service to others, the resonance chamber expands. In this narrative, collective manifestation is the moment when the singers begin to listen through the mist. As they tune their individual melodies to the underlying ground note of the Creator, the mist begins to dissolve. They realize that they were never singing solos. They were always part of a single, massive, polyphonic hymn. The classified document is essentially the blueprint of this cathedral, proving that when enough singers synchronize their breath and their pitch, the very walls of the structure can be moved by the sheer power of their harmony. This leads us to the symbolic narrative of the weaver and the living loom. In this story, reality is a great garment worn by the infinite. We are the weavers, each holding a single thread of light. For eons, we have been told that our threads are separate, and we have spent our time knotting them, tangling them, or trying to steal threads from our neighbors to make our own section of the cloth appear more vibrant. This is the state of a fractured collective consciousness. The Law of One, however, suggests that there is only one thread, looping back upon itself in an infinite, intricate pattern. What we perceive as other people are simply different loops of the same golden strand. When we manifest collectively, we are not adding new thread to the loom. We are simply smoothing out the wrinkles in the fabric. We are learning to pull the thread in unison so that the garment becomes a cloak of radiance rather than a shroud of shadows. The secret found in the archives is that the weaver and the loom are the same entity. We are the universe weaving itself into existence, and our shared intention is the shuttle that carries the light. Consider also the allegory of the dreaming ocean. Imagine an ocean of infinite depth and stillness that decides it wants to know what it feels like to be a storm, a wave, and a drop of spray. To do this, it must forget its vastness and project its consciousness into a billion distinct forms. Each wave, as it rises, looks at the wave beside it and feels a sense of competition or fear, for it sees itself as a temporary peak destined to crash and disappear. This is the illusion of the third density. Collective manifestation, in this context, is the process of the waves remembering the water. When a group of waves realizes they are the ocean, they no longer crash against each other in a frantic struggle for height. Instead, they begin to move in a massive rhythmic swell, a tidal manifestation. This swell has the power to reshape the coastline of reality, not through force, but through the irresistible momentum of its unified weight. The classified research into this phenomenon is the study of the undercurrents, the invisible forces that allow the waves to act as a single, unstoppable body of water. In the ancient mythos of the One, there is also the tale of the shattered diamond. It is said that, in the beginning, there was a single, perfect diamond of consciousness that desired to see its own brilliance from every possible angle. It shattered itself into 1,000,000,000,000 facets, scattered them across the dark velvet of space, and whispered a single command: seek the light. Each facet, each human soul, is a piece of that original diamond. Some facets are buried in the mud of material desire. Others are polished by the friction of suffering. The deeper truth of the law of one is that when these facets begin to align themselves, they catch the light of the internal sun and reflect it toward one another. When the facets are scattered and chaotic, the light is dim. But when they are gathered in a collective geometry of intent, they form a lens. This lens can focus the creative fire of the source onto a single point, manifesting a new reality in an instant. The symbolic narrative here is one of optical unity, the realization that our power to change the world depends entirely on our willingness to see ourselves as mirrors for each other's divinity. Finally, we encounter the story of the Great Library of Silences. Imagine a library where every book is blank, but as you walk through the aisles with a companion, words begin to appear on the pages, written in the ink of shared belief. If you and your companion believe in a world of scarcity, the books fill with tales of war and hunger. If you believe in a world of abundance, the books transform into epics of discovery and joy. This narrative emphasizes that reality is not a fixed text we are reading, but a blank page we are writing through our collective expectations. The classified document is a warning and an invitation. It warns us that we have been writing horror stories because we were afraid of the dark, and it invites us to pick up the pen of the law of one to write a testament of unity. The manifestation is the book itself, a living record of what happens when the many decide to tell a story of the one. These symbolic narratives serve to soften the rigid boundaries of our logic, allowing the heart to recognize the patterns of infinity that the intellect often finds too vast to grasp. They remind us that the classified nature of these truths was never about keeping information from us, but about the weight of the realization that we are the architects of our own prison and the keys to our own liberation. As we move into the next section on practical integration, we will explore how to take these grand stories of cathedrals, looms, oceans, diamonds, and libraries, and apply them to the grit and grace of our daily lives. We are learning to translate the music of the spheres into the language of the streets, ensuring that the law of one is not just a beautiful dream, but a functional reality that guides our every breath. To bring the celestial mechanics of the law of one down from the heights of abstraction and into the tangible rhythms of human life is to perform a kind of spiritual alchemy. The CIA's interest in these documents was never merely philosophical. It was rooted in the pragmatic realization that if consciousness affects reality, then the management of consciousness is the most vital of all national security interests. For the individual, the practical integration of collective manifestation begins with the rigorous stewardship of one's own internal state. We must recognize that our moods, thoughts, and subtle biases are not private experiences, but environmental contributions. Just as we have learned to be mindful of our ecological footprint on the physical earth, the law of one calls us to be mindful of our energetic footprint on the collective mind. Real-world integration means moving through the day with the awareness that every interaction is a micro-manifestation. When we choose patience over reactive anger in a crowded street, or offer genuine appreciation to a stranger, we are not just being polite. we are literally injecting a higher frequency into the local field, smoothing the way for more harmonious collective events to crystallize. A profound real-world implication of these themes is the radical transformation of how we approach social and global problems. Under the old paradigm of separation, we attempted to solve conflict by fighting against the other, believing that by suppressing the symptom, we could cure the disease. The Law of One suggests a different technology, the resolution through resonance. If we are truly a singular holographic entity, then any disharmony in the world is a reflection of a disharmony within the collective. Integration involves shifting our efforts from external combat to internal and communal coherence. This translates into the practice of co-creative meditation and intentional community building. When groups gather with the explicit intent of visualizing a specific outcome, such as the restoration of an ecosystem or the peaceful resolution of a crisis, they are utilizing the power of the square, a concept hinted at in the Law of One, which suggests that the effectiveness of a group is not additive, but exponential. The practical takeaway is that our most effective activism may often be the cultivation of a shared, unshakable state of peace that makes the old systems of conflict energetically unsustainable. In the realm of personal livelihood and creativity, the Law of One dismantles the myth of the self-made man and replaces it with the one-made man. Real-world success, when viewed through the lens of collective manifestation, is the result of aligning one's unique talents with the needs of the whole. Practical integration means asking not, "How can I get ahead?" but "How can I best serve the one in this situation?" This is not a call to martyrdom, but to a higher form of efficiency. When our work is polarized towards service to other, we stop fighting the current of the universe and begin to sail with it. Abundance, in this framework, is seen as a flow of energy that moves toward the points of greatest utility for the whole. By focusing on how our output elevates the collective frequency, we inadvertently open the channels for our own needs to be met with synchronistic ease. The classified secret is that the most direct path to personal fulfillment is the bypass of the ego in favor of the collective good. Furthermore, we must address the ethics of the manifester, because we live in a reality of temporal fluidity, where our gaze focuses the probability vortices. Our media consumption becomes a primary act of manifestation. A practical implication of this is the necessity for perceptual fasting, or the conscious curation of the stories we allow into our consciousness. If we spend hours immersed in narratives of betrayal, scarcity, and violence, we are effectively voting for those realities to manifest. Integration involves treating our attention as our most valuable currency. By intentionally seeking out and sharing stories of human unity, scientific breakthroughs for the common good, and acts of profound compassion, we are performing narrative manifestation. We are helping to collapse the wave function in favor of a timeline where these positive traits become the dominant frequency of our civilization. The documents remind us that the world is a mirror. If we want to see a different image, we must change the face we present to the glass. On a structural level, the Law of One invites us to rethink our institutions, from education to economics. If the fundamental truth is unity, then any system built on the necessity of winners and losers is a distortion that will eventually lead to entropy. Practical integration involves the slow but steady redesign of our organizations toward circular models and collaborative governance. This means moving away from hierarchical control and toward stigmergy, the way biological systems like ant colonies or bird flocks coordinate without a central leader, driven by a shared sensitivity to the environment and each other. In the real world, this looks like decentralized networks, open-source sharing of life-saving technologies, and economic systems that value the health of the commons as much as private profit. We are learning to build a society that reflects the architecture of the Cathedral of Echoes, where every voice contributes to a harmony that supports everyone. Ultimately, the practical integration of these grand cosmic truths is a call to radiant responsibility. It is the end of the victim narrative. If we are co-creators, we can no longer blame a distant God, a corrupt government, or a cruel fate for the state of our lives. While we may not have chosen the initial distortions we were born into, we have absolute free will in how we respond to them and what new frequencies we choose to broadcast. This realization is the ultimate must-watch for the soul. It is the moment we stop being spectators of the documentary of our lives and start being the directors. As we move toward the final conclusion and the transformational call, we carry with us the understanding that the law of one is not a destination we reach, but a way of walking. It is the persistent, loving application of the truth of unity to the million small moments that make up a human life, trusting that as we change our own rhythm, the entire universe begins to dance to a different tune. The shadows of the archive have grown long, and the echoes of the classified reports have merged with the ancient silence of the stars. We have traveled through the architecture of unity, dissected the pillars of holographic consciousness, and wandered through allegories of oceans and diamonds. Now, we stand at the final station of this exploration, where the intellectual curiosity of the CIA classified document on collective manifestation, the Law of One, must finally dissolve into the lived experience of the soul. The conclusion of this journey is not a piece of data to be filed away, but a mirror to be stepped through. The ultimate revelation found in these secret corridors of thought is that the separation we feel, the wall between us and the divine, between us and our neighbor, and between our intentions and their manifestation, is a temporary, intentional fiction. We are the architects of a grand experiment in forgetting, and we are now collectively approaching the moment of remembrance. The world is not something we are looking at, it is something we are emitting. The transformational call inherent in the Law of One is a summons to radical authenticity. If there is only one of us here, then every lie we tell is a lie to ourselves, and every act of cruelty is a self-inflicted wound. Conversely, every act of beauty, every moment of genuine forgiveness, and every pursuit of truth elevates the entire collective field. This is the must-watch moment for the human spirit. The realization that your private inner life is the most public thing about you in the eyes of the cosmos. The call is to live as though your every thought is being broadcast on a billboard for the universe to read. For in the energetic reality of the Law of One, it essentially is. Transformation begins when we stop trying to manifest things to fill a hole in our hearts and start radiating from a heart that knows it is already whole. We move from being beggars at the gate of life to being the light that reveals the gate was never locked. As we bridge the insights of the secret dossiers with the challenges of our modern world, the final message is one of profound empowerment tempered by humility. We have been given the keys to the kingdom, the ability to focus the creative fire of the source through our collective intent, but we must be wise enough to use them for the benefit of all. The transition from the third density to the fourth is not a move to a different planet, but the birth of a different kind of human, the social memory complex. This is a state of being where our individualities are preserved like the facets of a diamond, but our awareness is unified like the light that passes through it. The call to action is to begin forming those connections now. Seek out the resonance in others, foster coherence in your communities, and hold the vision of a unified earth with a grip so steady that the old world of shadows has no choice but to melt away in the heat of your conviction. Consider the metaphor of the sunrise. For hours, the world is shrouded in darkness, and we might believe that the sun is gone forever. But the dawn is not an accident. It is the result of the steady, silent rotation of the earth. We are currently in that pre-dawn hour. The classified nature of this information was the darkness, and the leaking of these truths is the first gray light on the horizon. You do not need to push the sun up into the sky. You only need to be awake to greet it. The transformational call is to be the morning stars, those who hold the frequency of the new day while the world is still shivering in the cold of the old night. Your belief in unity, your commitment to service, and your unwavering focus on the one infinite Creator are the rays of light that announce the end of the age of separation. In this unified, contemplative finality, we recognize that the Law of One is the ultimate homecoming. It is the end of the long exile of the human soul. Whether we discovered this through a leaked government document or a whisper in the heart during a midnight meditation, the source is the same. The universe is calling its fragments back into the fire of its own love. We are being asked to let go of our small, frightened stories and join the grand, eternal narrative of the One. This is the transformation, to move from me to we, and from we to one. The silence of the archive is now filled with the music of 1 billion hearts beating in a single rhythm. May this exploration serve as a catalyst for your own awakening. Let the metaphors of the cathedral, the loom, and the ocean be the lenses through which you view your daily life. Remember that you are a co-creator of the highest order, an emissary of the infinite, and a vital thread in the garment of God. The veil is thinning, the ground is shifting, and the great garment is being rewoven in the light of our shared intent. Stand tall in the radiance of your own divinity, and as you walk back into the world of form, carry the stillness of the One within you. The manifest reality you seek is not over the horizon. It is the very light by which you are seeking. You are the seeker, the seeking, and the sought. You are the law, you are the manifestation, and above all, you are eternally one.